What's going on, everyone? This is Cass from the rock band Red Light King. Check out our new album, In Our Blood, available everywhere now. And make sure you're watching John the Ninja.
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the Dojang, aka the John the Ninja Studios. Oh my goodness, whether you believe in a god or the universe or whatever, let me tell you how excited I am, because this is no lie. You can't make this up, people. Literally 30 minutes ago, I had no power. I had no chance of talking to this man. And I was so upset because he is a friend of the podcast. He's one of the great people when you're trying to get to where you're going. He happens to be that voice of reason that kind of helps you think. And man, all these years later, but we'll chop it up. Enough about John the Ninja. Let's talk about this gentleman, because let me tell you, he's from Hamilton, a hard-working town, and he's a Canadian American that has lived an extravagant life. Guys, let me tell you, the man has had nods from young. He's had competitions against Eminem to see whose song would be on the Iron Man 3 movie. The man's done judo all over the world. He works on old school cars, but the most important thing is he is a working man, and that's who his music represents, the working man. Once again, we are graced by the presence of Kasprzyk of Red Light King. This man named the band after his father's Red Light Bandit, the 67 Barracuda, that 9-second drag car, but he is truly an inspiration with not just what I just mentioned, but going over 20 years. I know they're going to say 20 years exact, but he's done it even longer. 20 years in the music business. It's just 20 years being a professional at it. And he's released his new album with his friends, In Our Blood, for Red Light King. Guys, welcome back to the dojo. Kaz, sir, good to see you.
Wow, John, thanks for the intro, man. That's awesome. It's great to be here. Great to be above the dirt, buddy.
Man, after everything you've been through, man, it's crazy. I'm so excited for you, because not too long ago you were on social media, you were on Instagram, and it was like your son was born. It was like you just got married. You were talking about the release of this album, In Our Blood, and the excitement was just infectious, man. So we'll get to everything that happened, but I gotta ask you, after all the hard work and the toiling, that day, bring me back to the release. What was it like to finally hear it's out?
Yeah, In Our Blood. Well, thanks again for that intro, and it's great to be here. And this record was a rad experience, because I sort of, I didn't have anyone looking over my shoulder, and I produced the record myself. And I got a new place in Hollywood, which was where I showed up when I first moved to LA. And so it felt really sort of back to the like heart, soul, and of rock and roll, and what rock and roll means to me. And I got to write, with using the experience, the life experience that I've had, and just writing from the heart, but also just focusing on being a wordsmith, and no giveaways, no throwaways. And a lot of it I had already envisioned over the pandemic. So to be able to get a green light, and I signed a record on with a German label called Afm Records. And so they backed this record, and that really gave me, 6 months to finish writing and recording the record, and bring some key players in on it as well. So it was really exciting to release it and build the vinyl. I think it's like anything. I think I try not to get overly excited or overly disappointed on anything. You know what I mean? I'm pretty even keel these days, man. But I know it's been received really well, and it only came out last week, right, on the 3rd. Okay, so we're going on week 2. But yeah, I don't know. We can get into it more, but overall, I'm super grateful. And it has been 20 years of making records in the business, and that puts you in a space of like, well, I'm gonna do what I think sounds cool. And you don't get too far down the road of working too hard, just kind of getting out of the way, seeing what's there, knowing I wanted fast and heavy and groove. And so what's that look like? And what's the muse? I always pick a muse. It's usually the car or a woman for, for a song, for an individual song, but you know, or an experience. And yeah, it was great, man. So I'm glad it's out there.
And you know what? You were so intuitive with this record. Like, ladies and gentlemen, let's just say what he said, that visceral hard rock, that first song, Cold Killer, that is that groove, all right? So, but, you know, you mentioned something. This is a German, like a metal label that signed you guys, but you've also been conscious that you felt like your music resonates really well over in Europe, and those are spots that you really haven't had the opportunity to tour with the band in a large succession. You know, when you
Yeah.
were approached, what was the deals they were giving you? Say like, hey, listen, we know that this is what you like, this is what we offer, and this is how we can expand your reach. What was some of that conversation now that you're really hands on it?
Yeah, I think it was just a very straightforward, literal conversation of them, you know, approaching me saying, "We love what you do. We don't want you to change anything." You know, they're leaning towards more American acts and rock acts, and like getting a sponsor for your race car. You know, you're still responsible for your team and your driver and your performance. You know, they were there to, you know, help in certain areas, and yeah, I certainly had hoped for some more European opportunities with the European label, but I think um, none of those have really come to fruition as much as I'd like to. But I I know that, you know, what I built, it's successful anywhere that people like rock and roll. So for yeah, at this point, this is my fifth record deal in 20 years. So for me, I you know, I redline the contract myself, and I also find a lot of artists come to me for, you know, advice in that area, just out of experience, you know. And I think you just got to make something, and also like, you know, split shares were really fair, and it really made sense for us to partner on this record. So I'm really happy with the label. I enjoy everyone over there, and they love the first four songs I sent them, and so then after that, it was just like, yeah, there was never a moment of like, hey, can you try something different or can you do this? It was just they were just really grateful, and I was grateful to do it. So it's been a pleasure, man. Like I don't, and but by the way, I don't harbor resentments with any of the labels that I've gone down the road with. You know, I signed the deal. You know, I'm accountable for my actions, and I've never, I always start out in the right headspace, and that's it. Just matters. The music is what matters, and I'm not going to compromise my vision. And then you get down the road with some of the major labels who have influences and have gatekeepers in the industry, and then you're offered opportunities where compromise is sort of usually permissible to most artists. Maybe that's where I sort of, you know, drawn some hard lines or said some hard no's. And now it's like, well, I've been doing it 20 years. I don't have to say no. I try to say yes to everything, you know, like whatever that is, but because I know what I stand behind my music, you know, I stand behind what I'm building as an artist. And at this point, you know, I'm a lifer. So I just try to make music consciously and like stream what's there and try to stay current and relevant. And um I'm a big fan of music, so I've been listening, you know, just listening to everything. And if you say who you've been listening to, I'm like, when I say everything, I'm like, I listen to hours of music. You know what I mean? So like, I'm not gonna name names, but I mean all genres, all artists, and see who's popping and who's not, and then get back to into my little, you know, woodshed, my little wheelhouse, you know, and do my thing, and just been really playing a lot of guitars and really singing a lot, and I feel like I'm getting better, and so that's always, you know, it's a way I stay optimistic, and I'm, you know, and I'm able to challenge myself, because what before was a big challenge and now I'm cruising on. So now it's like, okay, well, how can I push myself to make some, especially producing the record. I feel like Cold Killer is like the perfect mashup of my loves. You know, it's got some hip hop influence, it's got some rock and AC/DC influence and stuff like that. So for me, it was just a cool song, and I'm glad you mentioned that one, because that was one of the ones where I was like, okay, this is going to be kind of the flagship, you know. And then, but then halfway through the record, you go to a ballad that I actually wrote with a good friend of mine, Jimmy Messer, who was helped kick off AWOL Nation, and works with tons of incredible artists, and he's himself is an amazing songwriter. And we wrote Heavy Heart together. And I didn't want to put the ballad on there because I wanted it to be a straight ahead.
You want to rock and roll all the way through.
Yeah. Then I thought, you know, it was such a good song, and it gave the listener a break. It gave me a break, and it shows some vulnerable, you know, a vulnerable side of me. And it turns out that's a lot of people hit me up and say that that one's special for them. So there you go. I mean, like I said, you know, sometimes when it's curating the songs together, I've got to lean on the people around me, because I tend to write 40 or 50 songs, and then I tend to produce, you know, around 20, and then I don't know, I imagine it'd be like putting a book together, you know, this chapter and this chapter, and this is how this works. It's the same sort of thing as far as making a real record. Like, I love albums, you know, and I know it's a singles world, and I know the world's changed, and I know people don't have patience for albums, but I still believe in them, you know.
It was so cool, especially the last time we talked, because you were so humble, and we talked a little bit about your life and your upbringing and the things you've done to help people. But like seeing you now, and seeing, like, listening to this album, I ain't gonna lie, Moonshine was fire to me. I'm still stuck on side. I Ain't Dead has not left my heart. That bass, that drum. But now I'm like, you said there's periods in your career where there's ups and downs, and it always seems like extremes. When I listened to King again, that song touched on a lot of things you've mentioned about your life, of things you've overcome in your life. But I wanted to know, where were you in the headspace when everything went down? Like, you guys released the album, not even the album at that point. You guys released, I believe it was Curse. You guys released Curse, and then the pandemic hit. And it's like, I have this great album. Yeah. We're on the pause. And then after that, you had to get another, real job again. Not that you're bigger than that, but you had to go back to your bare roots. It's literally starting over again. So where were you in that mindset of, okay, round 2, and then did that all contribute to King Again?
I think it did. I think King Again is just how I felt when I heard that beat. I was just like, even if it wasn't so literal, I'm not a king. I've come from a long line of peasants, but wonderful. And I say that sarcastically as well. Hardworking people and professionals. And I'm talking way back, like grandparents in Poland kind of thing, and Scotland. And but I just felt like a king when I was singing that song. I felt like Red Light King was the initial feeling of excitement when you start a new project, and to go through all this road and to sit there on, to be playing in front of, say, 20,000 people, and Phil Anselmo's side stage, and he's rocking out. I'm like, okay. And then and then going and jumping people's cars on the side of the road, and working, painting houses and stuff like that. You're like, you don't feel the same excitement. So for me, when I started recording this record, I just wanted to feel that way, and it was, it's just a headspace. So that's what King Against. It's just about fucking just picking yourself up, and I think we're all kings, man. I think you're a king, I really do. I think we need to talk to ourselves better. I know in the past I'd say, like, I can't. I used to say I can't a lot. Now I say I won't. You change words, just like we do when we're writing lyrics. Then you change the conversation. If you can change the conversation, if you can inspire yourself. Like I try to write songs often that inspire people, but I don't take my own advice. Sometimes I'm like, the way I talk to myself. So King Again was about sort of empowerment.
So I know you and your brother, your muse for this album is redoing a car your father had. I didn't know if it was exactly the Red Bandit or another one like it.
No, it was another one. But yeah, that was it. Yeah, it's a '56 Chevy. My father's first car he bought when he was 18 for 225 bucks, I think. In 19, he bought it in 67. Yeah, 67. He was born in 49, so he's 18. And he ripped the motor out and put a V8 in it and drag raced it. It was a bit of a dog because it was like a 265. It's like the predecessor of the 350 Chev, there. But uh he still did it when he was a teenager, you know what I mean? Like you think of it, it's like, well, fuck, he's a teenager. He's 18, 19, he's drag racing. And then he got married in it with my mom at 21. And then he took it off the road in 70. And my brother was born in 72. So me and my brother never saw this car on the road. This car was in the driveway, fucking dead. And then my brother took it apart when he was 16. My dad gave him the car when he was 16. So my brother was gonna, ambitious young guy, took it apart, stayed apart for like 30 years. And then we pulled it out of the wherever we were storing it. It moved many times. Every time they would move the house or the car would get moved. Tommy eventually built his house and moved the car there. And yeah, so we're restoring it. We lost Dad 10 years ago, so we thought, let's do a tribute, And so we're building a period correct late 60s street racer with putting a 5-speed in it behind a 348, which is the first Chevy big block. It was a W motor. It's called a 348, which eventually became the 409. Beach Boys wrote a song about the 409, and it's a pretty cool looking motor. So we thought that would be neat. And period correct. Everything for me is period correct.
How do you use it as a muse? Like for me, I totally understand the girl part, but when I'm affected by a muse, the focus isn't so much like I'm writing to, like, oh, I'm thinking of her, let me write about her. It's more of like the best example is like, wow, I kissed the girl I want. I'm gonna go get the world by storm. I'm gonna do what I want, and you just have this spiritual ambition. How has your muses like this one influenced this album?
Cars are an easy one for me because I'm such a hands-on guy and I'm so grassroots, and I just love the soul that old things have, let alone cars, and just how they're laid out, how the foundation is, the frame, the motor, the power plant, we call it, right? The heartbeat, and then translating that into what it's going to sound like, what the power behind it is, what we're doing with the transmission, where it is at the back, what the color is going to be, what the shape it is, what the interior looks like. These are all parts and words in the song. They're all a vision. They all give me an overall feeling. And a lot of artists I know see in colors. I do too, but I also see in shapes. And I want it to perform. I want the song to perform throughout its entirety, whether it be 3 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever it is, and it all has to be cohesive in this, that now you're servicing a feeling. You're not just servicing a song or a title. You're servicing the whole thing. So everything you add on it works from something else. So whether it's counterpoint of a bass line and a guitar, or the way the vocals are phonetically, sorry, I got a car going by here right off the street. So I'm in LA, but it's almost like New York. So yeah, I think that everything is about a certain type of balance, or if I'm going to more punk rock or a sound, knocking it asymmetrical, that muse would be like, putting an exhaust over here or something, I mean, like I think of things like that in design. I love fashion, I love design, I love architecture, Like I'm a big fan of brutalism right now, so everything that I do is like a little blockier. And I don't know. I don't know. I think you can. I think at the end of the day, if you feel a certain way after you listen to a song and it makes you feel good or whatever it is, or super sad and down or whatever it is, it makes you feel something heavy, then I've succeeded. You know.
That's a really cool way to look at it. And because you have mentioned like sometimes you got to look for stuff, and other times it just comes to you. Like something that I thought was really cool that I relate to. You're asleep, you're thinking, you're just in your head, you're trying to pass out, and then all of a sudden a riff comes to you, and then you got to get up. It's like I don't want to get up, and then it's like the fight to save the sound. You know,
Yeah.
for this album, what was that one song that you came up with it lyrically or riff wise, and you went, that's different. That's different. And it was kind of like a fight to keep it on there because again, this is more of a rock groove album. And even with the ballad, you were like, oh, I needed some friends to tell me. But there had to have been a song you did where it was like, I really want this on here, but I don't know if this will work.
I don't know if I had so many on the table that I felt pretty good about all of them. I just I kept refining the lyrics on this one a lot. It meant a lot to me. I want to be able to always read my lyrics like a poem. And if they don't read well and they don't make me feel a certain way when I'm reading them, then something's wrong. I'll change it. And I don't like to wrestle it too much, but I definitely like I write poetry and I find myself like refining a poem I wrote 6 months ago. I still go back in and I say, is it right? Can I tweak it? Obviously, I can't afford that amount of time when I'm making a record and I want to put it out. But and you get to a certain point where it's like, you know when it's right, or you got to put down the brush, So I loved My Execution is the last song on the record, and it was like the muse for that was like my grandfather was in the World War and my great grandfather, and they're all Polish background, so they were being occupied by Russia or they're invaded by Germany or invaded by Russia, constantly over history, and I put myself in their shoes at a young age. It's kind of like walking out to your death and what that means and what you would say and how that would what that would must have felt like, and now living in this comfortable version of the world compared to what they went through. I just wanted to give some insight into like, hey man, by the way, that was only like 2 generations ago. I think everyone's really right now the social cue is like leaning towards making everyone comfortable, and I feel like sometimes we forget to live in gratitude. So I just that one was like, yeah, am I saying it too harsh? And by the way, I co-wrote that song with a very dear friend of mine, Ty Taylor, who from the band Vintage Trouble. I call him the Rev because he's a reverend. He's incredible. And so he really helped me with that one. And we wrote it together. And I love co-writing. So but throughout the record, it was definitely like leaning on Julian, leaning on some of my old friends. My friend Zandy Barry mixed the record. Wally Gaggle again from the original Red Light Camp mixed in King again, and he mixed Evil Lies. So I still had some great people around me, man. You know what I mean? To be like, it's okay, it's okay. It's done. It feels good.
Yeah, but you said that years ago. Man, it's like I can still remember our first chat. You said, I just want good people around me. I just want to have, have that.
It's true. Yeah.
We got to bring up Julian, man. We got to bring him up again.
Bring them up.
The first time I was like, okay, this guy, you know, turned you down so many times, and now you guys made it, and you're doing your thing.
Oh, yeah, I forget that story. I've forgotten it now after 25 years of friendship.
How beautiful is that? You guys met at 19, and now all these years later, like I don't know how long ago it was, but
Yeah, and he's still sick. He's still sick guitar player, man, and a great musician. And his biggest contribution to this album was In Our Blood. He had a demo for a solo band um, that had been sitting around for years, and it was never going to come out. And so we reworked it. He had the melody and the guitars, and there was a line in the song that said "In Our Blood," and I was like, "No, this title's In Our Blood, and let's do this, and let me put it to a pour on the floor, and let me rework the verse, and what do you think of these lyrics?" And I love that. I love that he was that's one of his babies, you know. So yeah, man, it's cool. Like we're family, you know. So at this point, it's like I could talk to him or not talk to him when we're 100, you know.
was there ever a moment, and I'm trying my best to articulate this. I've been fortunate to have really good friends, even when I've been an idiot or I've done something ignorant. But there's always a moment where, you know, you remember they just hung out with you and it sticks in your mind, or they did something very, very helpful to you. Like I just mentioned school. I had a friend, he literally is working 2 jobs, has a master's, and is about to go to school himself. I told him I wrote down like an acceptance letter, send it to him. He said this is trash, and then right there on the spot wrote one for me. You know, you can't make that kind of care up, you know. Was there a time in your friendship where Julian did something and it just kind of gave you like that little boost to keep going, and you always held that to your heart?
I think sometimes when I'm really down on myself, you know, he's looked at me and said, you know, especially like when we first got Old Man, and then the second record didn't hit as much. And yeah, he's always picked me up, or you know, given me confidence when I'm just really beating myself up. So I don't think there's one particular moment. Um, he's better at that stuff than me. You know, as far as like remembering details and stories, he's definitely my go-to for that. You know, I'll be like, "Where were we this night in Baltimore?" And da da da. Or sorry, you know, he'll say, Baltimore, 2013, this club, this time we did this set, we met so and so." Like he remembers everything, you know, and I'm like, I don't. So I would say for that, he's a great timekeeper, and yeah, he's not trying to keep score though. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like so, and then neither am I. Like at this point, it would be ridiculous to have the kind of dynamic with a singer and a guitar player in a rock band. Is like if you kept score, it would just be a nightmare. It's a very it's a relationship with a lot of moving parts, but if you zoom out, it's like you're both there because you want to be there. All right, and there's magic that happens when we play together. So if anything's happening out of like outside of the music, we just get in a room together and we're like, that's fine. Like I remember we came off the tour once and he's like, I'm never doing this again. I quit. And then I call him a month later, and I was like, we got a show. What do you think? And he's you know, well, I'll see you at rehearsal. It's like, you know what I mean? It's just like, of course you're not gonna quit. Neither am I. We don't do that. So, and you know, I treat it light, but at the times things feel very heavy, don't they? Whatever they are in our life, it feel, you know, sometimes it feel like, oh, we're not gonna make it through this one. But as long as you keep showing up, you can make it through anything, you know. So yeah, at this point, you know, Julian will always be a member of Red Light King, and whether we're doing Red Light King records or other music or other things in our life, other ventures, we'll always be best friends. We'll always be family. So that's great, and yeah, and he knows you know we've had oh yeah we've gone deep, man. You know what I mean? Like it's good to have a brother like that. And my real brother, by the way, is one of those people. that has like constantly been there for me and never judged me. And when I was in my disease and how really out of my head, living a very unspiritual life, those guys never judged me. And there's been quite a few people, because we feel isolated and alone a lot, especially as creatives. Like, wow, we feel like that we're not understood. But I'm very fortunate that I do have people around me that love me and they do care, that I'm healthy, and they're focused on that before, I write a dope song or make money and, can buy stuff rather than sell stuff. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, my real brother, Tommy, God, I love that guy. Yeah. So I've always got family, and that's most important.
During the pandemic, that was a big thing for people, that isolation. You already went through that with your recovery. If people didn't know that you did have substance abuse issues in the past and had to overcome that, I did have to ask. I didn't want to let that slide, whether or not, those feelings were intensified because it's an everyday struggle. If you were able to help anybody, what was the situation like for you during the pandemic? Because again, like we already mentioned, you had to get a regular job. You had to kind of go back to being, a normal everyday hardworking man.
Yeah, it was really difficult, man. I think it was difficult for everyone. I think we're all hurting, you know. I feel like that, the Canadians, Canada's set up with an infrastructure in such a way that it is very strict, but also there's less unemployment, there's less people, there's more camaraderie. I think here in the US, it's felt like state to state was different, right? It was very divided. And also, let's not forget that before, as the pandemic was happening, we're still having all the stuff with the police and all these crazy social injustices were being exposed. And I think it was just really difficult for everyone, man. I don't think I'm special. You know what I mean? Like I had a hard time being there for people because I fell back into my disease, and that was just hell for me and the people around me. So I had a really difficult pandemic. It was, but I'm alive. Like, I will say that I've definitely pushed it too far. And yeah, so I don't think now being a recovered addict, I can tell you that it's, your disease wants you to be self-centered and self-seeking, self-sabotaging, and as you get down that path, you lose sight of things. And at that point, I really don't think it's you're in any kind of space to make a rational thought. So you do hurt yourself, you do hurt the people around you, and then you're in pain, you're experiencing real pain. So if I write a song about that or recovery, it seems like maybe I'm repeating myself sometimes throughout my catalog. It's because it's important to me and it's affected me so much, and I need to talk about it. And it needs to be something visceral, and it needs to be something that I can expose about myself and be vulnerable, so that people know that they're not the only one that's going through something. So yeah, the pandemic sucked, but it would have been better if I was sober through it, for sure. It still would have been difficult.
The one thing that, other than music, it's always like martial arts or some sort of sport, physical activity that got, man, you are a second degree black belt in judo, and traveled the world. Have you ever fallen back into doing it?
No, I'm pretty close now because I got a herniated disc, so I had to get that figured out. But I really funny, man. I usually with my brother, because we trained so many years together that usually when I come home, we throw in the gis and do a butt and throw each other around and roll around, and it feels really good to be practicing judo with people who are on the same wavelength, you know, for that particular sport. So yeah, I just, you know, what I've been doing, brother, is a lot of swimming.
Nice.
My dad was a swimmer. He was on a national water polo team, and he coached water polo at Hill Park in Hamilton. And my uncle had played water polo too, and he played football. He was a big football guy. He went to Hoosier College and Worcester College in Ohio. And so my family's always been athletic, you know what I mean? If I definitely, obviously, am way healthier. I think we all are when we're working out, doing something. But it's funny, I got in the headspace and I was like, oh, this is what Dad was feeling when he was swimming, all these lengths. This is horrible. I'm just 20 lengths into it, trying not to drown, man. This is what a brutal sport. Well, water polo must be. But yeah. So, but no, I love working out. I really do. I love the still trying to feel good and be able to show up. Like I want to be able to still throw down, you know, if need be. And so you got to stay sharp, you know. So yeah, it's part of my. But I have thought about going back on the mats. For me, it's like again being around the right people in the same mindset that, oh, I'm not gonna hop back on the mats, try and train for the Olympics or jump into the UFC. You know what I mean? Because that's where my head goes. Like, oh, I gotta kill it, no matter what I do.
But it never leaves you, man. I was at a concert the other day, and this dude, you know, the grab, you can feel it as soon as somebody grabs you that way, and you're like, they know what they're doing, bro. In the middle of a mosh pit, we're having it was jujitsu, but we're doing moves, and I'm like, yo, only martial artists will pick a friendly fight in the middle of a show. But I have to ask, because as much of a renaissance man you are, the thing I really love watching on Instagram is you having a stogie, man.
I've got one over there. I usually smoke during the podcast, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll smoke with you. I got one ready to go. Let's see.
I only have a little Arturo right now. I don't have a big one.
So this one's a defective Cuban delight. I got this for a wedding for my buddy.
I got a little baby Arturo Fuente.
Like that guy.
But this one's got a smooth. It's like a coffee taste to it.
So funny, because I was literally just gonna go down to the shop before I jumped on, and then I thought, you know that feeling before you jump on a podcast or you do something, I just wanted to chill out.
Yeah.
I would have been all hyped up. Like after I quit drinking, I needed something, and like cigars filled the void. But I'm gonna tell you, not a cheap habit. Not a cheap habit, man.
Not if they're good ones. They could definitely
And
not.
after you smoke a few good ones, you're like, you don't want to smoke the crap.
Were you ever thinking about getting into doing a cigar brand?
Man, my girlfriend just asked me. She was just talking about that. She's into marketing. She's like, you should talk to some cigar brands and like mix it in with the music and the rock and roll and the whole thing. And I was like, hell yeah, that would be incredible. Let's do one, John.
I'm in, man. But it's one of those things, it's always cool when we see you do it, man. You're always dressed up. You said fashion, and then we see you in these interviews. You're laid back. It's still a working getup, and then we see you working, and it's the jacket, it's the hat, it's everything flows so perfectly.
Thanks,
It's one of those things that's like, you can do both, and that's always impressed me about you.
Yeah, I think dress sharp, play sharp. You know what I mean? I just been sort of like, this is like, especially like with the Cold Killer video, I'm like, I'm just gonna do me. I'm just gonna have fun with it, and I'm just gonna not apply any rules. Like it was almost like it doesn't have to be a storyline. I just wanted all the shots to look cool. And like the opening shot we shot with my friend, one of my best pals, Strati Havartos. He's a incredible DP, and I'm on his Dyna. His Dyna's all gold. Call it the Gold Digger. I'm on his Dyna, and I'm in a suit that a guy wore in the TV show Mad Men. He wore it in the background of one of the shows. And my friend who owns a vintage shop in Burbank had it sitting there. And I was like, hey, I need a gold suit for this video. She's like, I got one. So I went and got this silk shark skin gold suit, and I'm riding the Dyna in the desert. And I'm like, that's a good shot for that.
That's the idea I was going with that. You know, a lot of people will look to family. A lot of people, you know, I think my mom's the best example. She
I
didn't
think
have
it's
anybody that
there.
was driven. You know, what do you think is in you that
I
pushes?
think
It's there, man. I think it's just in all of us. I think when we start putting on too much armor, it can't get out. You know what I mean? And it's like, for me, it's about taking pieces off. It's like let that spirit shine, let that whatever it is we were put here for. I was just thinking about it the other day. I was like, what? Because when you die, all your stuff's, they either throw your stuff out or someone else owns it. So what did you leave? Maybe you helped people. Maybe you left like love and good intention and vibe. And for me, obviously music, but more so, I think words last a long time. They last generations. So, I've been putting together a poetry book of the last 6 months, and I'm really excited to put that out and have that whole chapter of my artistry begin. Because I was like, oh, people have always said that about my writing and my music. It's poetic. And like now without the music, there's like no rules. Like reading old school Rudyard Kipling, new like to like the Bukowski, to like modern day hip hop guys. It's like, that's me right there. It's like it's blue collar, but it's romantic. It's like you said, it's Renaissance. So I think that's one way for the spirit to come out, is in the doing of, is finding something that you love and that purpose. That's how I remain young, I think. I don't feel young all the time. I feel like 200 years old, but I have a young spirit, an old soul and a young spirit.
What type of poetry do you prefer? Do you have a certain format, like the ABAA format, or haikuing? Because man, that class killed me in college. It kicked my ass.
Yeah.
It did not go well.
There's no real format. It's for me, it is that, like, there is a format, there is a beat to it. So I don't necessarily lock into the same one. In fact, when I'm reading my poems back, or back to front to back, and it becomes too AB, I'm like, this doesn't work for me. So some of them are just a tight column, and they're quick syllables. And because I did come from the background, a musical background, they have a beat and a cadence that I think is fresh as far as traditional poetry goes. So I'm hoping people receive it well, but at the end of the day, I love doing it. And I'm speaking as an observer, a social observer, but an observer of our collective consciousness and the souls within. And I think when you start to go down that, I can draw comparisons and to our innermost selves, and I could comparisons to nature, comparisons again to things we've built, mechanical things, architectural things. I'm creating tons of imagery in tons of places, and I want people to get chills. And it's like, if you can make poetry cool, you're doing something right, because not everybody's into that. But I think it can move people the way music can. I really do. So I just love doing it. Like I said, there's no rules. There are some confines when you're making music, unless you're making jazz.
Then anything goes, man. The last time I spoke with you, I always end these on what was the best piece of advice you ever got. But being this is the second round, I always ask the second go around, what's the worst advice you ever received?
Why didn't you prep me with that? I would have. I don't know, man. I've got some. It's not that I've gotten really bad advice. It's that I've gotten the void of advice, or the vacancy of like of the experience. Like we often just we're going down these similar paths, right? So we could draw on comparison and evidence, but it's like you're you going through life in your experience. So how are you going to feel when you come out of it? How do you want to feel during it, going into it, coming out of it? This is, that means more to me than a practical A plus B equals C. And this is how I got here, and this is how I succeeded, or you know what I mean? Like that's, for me, it's all about feel. So I guess the bad advice I got along the way was the antithesis of that. We should do this because this is good for our brand. I think when my gut was silenced by loyalty, I ran into problems in business. That's where my biggest failure was in the industry side of things, but not so much. And then I guess the biggest failure was letting my disease, get in the way of my spirit and my creativity. So, but the good news is I'm sober and healthy, and I'm still making records 20 years later. The good news is that I love my life, and the good news is that everyone along the way has taught me something to use, for better or for good or for bad or for worse, whatever it is, it's all a lesson. And so here we are, man, having this conversation, and I feel good about my life, and I'm proud of the things that I've done, and that's where I remain an optimist and stay positive. So bad advice, if I got bad advice, I often didn't take it, but like I said, it was more of the lack of good advice, I think. If that makes any sense.
It does, but it's weird because I think of like Bob. I'm gonna butcher his name. I think it's Cavallo, or Cavallo.
Cavallo.
Used to be manager for Prince and all these other acts, and he's the one that got you,
Yeah.
got you to Neil check out the song. But I'm thinking like, there's no way you couldn't, even absorb, something good just being around somebody that would like that.
And I'm still friends with them and the family, and Lisa's his daughter is helping me to this day. Like I'm on the phone with her yesterday, and they're wonderful people. Like that's what it's all about. Like, yeah, people who love music, but most importantly for me, people who love what I do, and in the way that I do it. It's like we have the same ethos. We follow the same ethical thread. That's that's dope. You know what I mean? And that is now 20 years in the game is what I realized is what's important, making cool shit with the people you love, man. And that's what we did on this record for sure. For sure. And I don't see an end to Red Light King. Now I realize, oh, there's no end to it. It's like I hate when bands that I love aren't doing it anymore, aren't making records. It's like, oh God, I would love it if they were still making records. And there's nothing stopping me from still driving that ship. Okay, might not look like, oh, we're touring all over the world, or we're having success here or success at radio, but now you can access music so freely and so frequently that if I can make it on the down low and more often, then more power to us, more power to adding, you know, what I think is good music to the world. So yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I say inspirational, that is a wonderful chat. That is Kaz, the Red Light King, and I want you to stop what you're doing, put it down, unless it's a stogie like I'm about to smoke. I still got to find the knife to cut this, but go check it out. In Our Blood, you can't miss it. There's a big lion on the front cover, but I'm telling you, this album, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna get the vinyl, I'm gonna get the CD, I'm gonna look for the tape. And I'm going to get a couple of my friends it too. Go check it out and check out Red Light King on the social media. They are definitely on Instagram, on Facebook, but most importantly, go to their website. That's where you can get all the cool merch. Kaz, so good to see you again, my brother.
Thank you for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
And everybody else, don't forget, be smart, be mindful, rock on. Ninja out.
What's up, everybody? This is Kaz from the rock band Red Light King. You're watching John the Ninja.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.